Thanks again, Clay. All right, well, let's begin. Happy December, everybody. It's a joyful time of year. And I just want to send out good wishes to everybody who's joined us today. On behalf of the League, maybe I can do that. Welcome to our December program for League of Women Voters Lunch and Learn. We're glad you can join us today for our program about climate policy. Again, I'm Terry Hendrickson. I chair the Lunch and Learn series. If you haven't already done so, please mute your audio and turn off your video so we can focus on our speaker today. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, please know that we use the chat function to pose questions. We don't do that live with our microphones, but chat your questions right there in that chat bit. And I'll monitor those questions at the end of our presentation and see if I can relay them well so that Becky can answer questions when we get there. So we'll begin. Let me introduce today's program and speaker. Becky Seth has been a co-leader of Lincoln-Lancaster chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby since 2013. Before retirement, she was head naturalist at Pioneers Park Nature Center. Becky belongs to the Mayor's Resilience Roundtable and Lincoln's Coalition for Environmental Improvement. She prioritizes climate work because of her love for her children and her grandchildren and her delight in the natural world. Becky, thanks for being with us today. Let's get started.
There we go.
Excellent. Looks good.
There, okay. So as Terry said, I am Becky Seth, and she kind of stole all my thunder about why I consider climate change my passion and my top priority among many important issues. The mission of Citizens Climate Lobby is to build political will to act on climate. And the main reason I remain active, besides the wonderful friendships I've made, is that the values of CCL align with mine. And I think many of them align with the League as also. We are nonpartisan. We believe in the power of democracy and the importance of making our voice heard. We know how important it is to be informed about the issues. We treat each other with respect and appreciation, and we focus on solutions. I'm not going to cover climate science today, but what I want to leave with you is a reminder of what is scientifically undisputed and what we face. Then I want to introduce you to who Citizens Climate Lobby is, the solutions we advocate for, and how we work. I'll cover a few resources that might be of interest, what is going on in Lincoln and in Nebraska. And finally, I want to leave you with ideas of what you and I can and really must do to combat the huge challenge that climate change poses. So what do we know? I really like the term global weirding. It is coined by scientist and communicator Katherine Hayhoe, and it's descriptive of what's going on. But scientists tell us that global warming is real. It's caused by human activity. The biggest driver is burning fossil fuels. The consequences are happening much faster than scientists predicted. And those who are least responsible for the problem are the most affected. And this statistic really caught my eye. The richest 1% is responsible for the same amount of emissions as the world's poorest 2/3. Action is urgent. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports that we have until 2030 to markedly reduce emissions. And I am sad to report that emissions went up in 2023. But most important of all, we have a host of solutions that are available to us.
Yes, good to go.
What we're up against is more record-setting temperatures. We know that 2023 was the hottest year on record globally. We will look forward to more extreme weather events, to rising sea levels. Miami is already experiencing sunny day flooding. There will be more severe droughts, which threaten our food supply. The oceans will, temperatures will continue to increase. The ocean has so far absorbed a lot of the carbon dioxide that we have emitted, and that has led to it warming, but also to it acidifying. Ecosystems are failing and species are becoming extinct rapidly. People are already migrating because of climate, but that will increase. And the US Defense Department has already called climate change a threat multiplier. I thought this one graphic might be useful. It shows the number of US billion-dollar disaster events from 1980 to 2023. And the averages on the right are telling. From 1980 to 2023, the average number of these billion-dollar disasters was 8.1. But from 2018 to 2023, that was 18. And in 2023 so far, we've had 25. These are expensive to us. So, who is Citizens Climate Lobby? We are a volunteer, nonpartisan organization. We have almost 600 chapters worldwide. We have volunteers in every US congressional district. And in Nebraska, we have chapters in Lincoln, Omaha, and Chadron. There are over 200,000 supporters. And we like to say that our answer to the climate crisis is democracy. So what makes a good climate solution? It drives large-scale change quickly. It looks out for those who can least afford rising energy and disaster response costs. It's healthy for both the planet and the economy. It's durable, so it will stick around. And it uses incentives that support choice. So what are the solutions that CCL supports? There are 4 of them, and I'll go into each one. We advocate for a gradually rising fee on pollution with the net revenue going back to households and a carbon border adjustment mechanism. We've advocated for free fee and dividend from the beginning as the single most efficient, effective solution that's available. It is supported by economists across the spectrum. A carbon border adjustment mechanism, or CBAM, is a trade policy tool that would place an import fee on carbon-intensive goods like steel and cement and fertilizers based on the greenhouse gas emissions generated during their production. Generally, this would favor US production. The EU has announced a CBAM in May of this year and will start levying taxes in 2026. This does concern Congress, and they are discussing a CBAM, but it is unclear whether the US could levy one if we don't have a tax on carbon. So for a long time, we were focused on that single solution, but we are long past needing only one. So we are advocating for 3 more. One is to support and preserve expanding forests and forestry, particularly urban tree cover to mitigate heat island effects in low-income neighborhoods that often lack the greenery of more affluent areas. We educate the public and elected officials on the importance of electrifying everything and building the efficiency of our buildings, with special attention to supporting low and middle income households in that transition. And we advocate for increasing America's capacity to transmit clean energy. So we need to speed up the permitting process, and particularly seek community input earlier in that process to avoid legal challenges.
She said, "What do you mean cook?"
So we say we work by engaging in 5 levers of political will. We maintain positive relationships with our elected officials. We have liaisons for each congressional office. Those liaisons schedule our meetings. They monitor the member of Congress's website and social media sites for things of interest to us and things we can appreciate them for. And we generally stay in touch with staff. The staff moves between congressional offices quite freely. And when we met with the environmental and energy aide for Senator Ricketts, she had come from a different office and knew all about CCL and also was extremely well informed with the issues. CCL sponsors an international conference and lobby days in DC in June. It's a thrill to be on Capitol Hill with 1,000 other people lobbying on the same day. I had never stepped into a congressional office before I got involved with Citizens Climate Lobby. And though I don't think I'm very good at lobbying, it does make me feel as though that's how a citizen has a voice. CCL also sponsors virtual lobby days in November, and we just recently met with all 3 offices. As monthly actions, we often send letters, emails, or calls to our members of Congress. And CCL has excellent lobbying training. Our teams always prepare. We have assigned roles, and we have questions that we wish to ask our member of Congress, and primary and secondary asks. Our primary ask has often been to place a fee on carbon, but here are an example of 3 secondary asks that we have gotten past in the last year or so. The Growing Climate Solutions Act gives farmers and ranchers access to carbon markets for sequestering carbon and building soil health. We asked Senator Fisher to support that. She actually became a co-sponsor, and she is very committed to precision agriculture. Another bill that passed was the SCALE Act. That stands for Storing Carbon Dioxide and Lowering Emissions. It's the first bipartisan bill that attempts to boost carbon capture infrastructure. And the CHIPS and Science Act, that revitalizes US semiconductor industry, but it also has funding for accelerating the growth of zero carbon industries and conducting climate relevant research. So we use the media. We have met regularly with the Lincoln Journal-Star, and they've been very good to us about publishing our letters to the editor and op-eds. We also have an online presence, both locally and nationally. We engage with local leaders, and we've been doing much more of that recently. The Lincoln chapter co-sponsored the Environmental Candidate Forum earlier this year. It was a forum where the questions were all on environmental issues, and I found it very informative. We met with most city council candidates, and we're meeting with most of the members of the city council again right now and inviting them to our meetings. We met with most state senate candidates from the Lincoln area, and we testified and or wrote our state senators on 7 bills in the last legislative session, and we're gearing up to do the same this year. We do outreach programs. We can give a presentation like this to your group if you're interested. We can tailor it to your group. We table speaking with the public at places like Earth Day, certainly, but also at community events like Streets Alive or farmers markets. And we have sponsored informal climate meetups at bars. A recent collaboration of CCL is with the Environmental Voter Project. EVP maintains databases of environmentalists who do not have a history of voting. and they direct calls and/or postcards to them. We do not endorse a particular candidate, but like the league, we give information about how to register and when and where to vote. They work in targeted states, and this year they're including Nebraska, mostly because of the 2nd district. But this spring, we and they worked hard for the Lincoln election. And CCL does a wonderful job of supporting chapters. The national website has a huge number of education and training things available, and you can go on and see what's there. They support monthly international calls that always include an educational speaker, achievement updates to keep us from getting depressed, and monthly actions, which are specific next steps to make. They also arrange regular calls with group leaders, with the congressional liaisons, and with a host of action teams. And those action teams are everything from agriculture to oil, 14 faith groups, higher ed, health, conservatives, progressives, people of color, you name it. So the Inflation Reduction Act was passed last fall. CCL worked hard during those negotiations, and we came within one vote of having a fee put on carbon as part of that legislation. It is the largest climate legislation ever enacted in the US. It has already resulted in 246 projects in 40 states and created nearly 85,000 jobs. Citizens Climate Lobby was also behind the House Bipartisan Climate Caucus, which has been in place for several years. It's a Noah's Ark caucus in which a Republican has to come in with a Democrat. And this year, it has as its top priority clean energy permitting reform. So now I'm going to cover a couple of resources that I thought might be of interest. The MIT Sloan Sustainability Initiative and Ventana Systems has developed this interactive tool called En-ROADS. You can find it on climateinteractive.org. The screen is just the introductory tool. On the bottom are listed several main solutions like decreasing the use of coal, raising the efficiency of buildings, electrifying our transportation system, etc. And as you move those toggles, you can see the effect of that solution on the utilization of various fuels. Those are the colored bars to the left. And their effects on projected temperatures by 2100. The current projection is that if we don't do anything, we will have 3.3 degrees Celsius of warming by 2100. Scientists say we have to keep warming under 1.5. We're already at 1.2. I've actually seen that it's 1.3. So when you play with this model, and it's free for the playing, a carbon price still has the single greatest effect on projected temperatures. But it becomes very obvious that every single one of these solutions is needed if we are to even stay below 2 degrees of warming. The tool has a lot more depth and nuance, and the public can sign up for free training for anyone who wants to delve deeper. It would be a great tool for high school and college classes. Another resource is the Yale program on climate change communication. They conduct scientific studies on public opinion and behavior to inform the decision-making of governments, media, companies, and advocates, to educate the public about climate change, and to help build public and political will for climate action. They divide citizens' opinions about climate change along a spectrum of 6 attitudes, from dismissive, doubtful, and disengaged, to cautious, concerned, and alarmed. On this slide, you can see how attitudes have changed since 2012 as more of the cautious have become concerned or alarmed. They also have really nifty climate opinion maps and fact sheets. You can tailor these for specific states, for congressional districts, and for even down to the county level. And you can choose the results of specific questions that they posed on beliefs, risk perceptions, support on various policies, and people's behavior. For example, do you talk about climate change at all with your friends? CCL has used these fact sheets in our meetings with leaders, and here I show you how Lancaster County compares with Nebraska and with the rest of the first district. And another resource is rewiringamerica.org. They have a personal IRA savings calculator, so you can see how much you could save on various climate electrification projects. They have a guide to the IRA, and they have a home guide for electrifying everything. And that points out that you really do need to plan ahead, since your home may need an electrical upgrade, and you won't have time for that when your water heater or your HVAC system goes out. So I don't know how many of you are aware that there is a website called Resilient Lincoln. On that website, you can find 2 climate action plans. Lincoln was the first city in Nebraska to have a climate action plan. Omaha is working on one right now. Lincoln's vision for a climate smart future is a wide-ranging plan with 8 action areas, hundreds of strategies. The climate action plan, which was passed by the city council, is much smaller, and it mostly affects city government. However, Benny Shobe has introduced a heat pump initiative to add city subsidies to those already available through the Lincoln electric system, especially for moderate and low-income households. On that website, you can also find the Electric Vehicles Readiness Plan. That is the first project of the Climate Smart Collaborative, which is comprised of the City of Lincoln, Lincoln Public Schools, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, Lincoln Electric System, and Lancaster County. It lays out plans for where best to put charging stations and how to cooperate to buy electric vehicles for these various entities. On that website is also a plan for the an expanded local food system, the 2050 comprehensive plan, and the community indicators report. As part of the IRA, Nebraska got a $3 million grant to develop a climate plan, and which they're calling the Climate Pollution Reduction Plan. There was a kickoff webinar that's available on the website, and I found that the many possible solutions that they are considering was quite encouraging. They put in place 5 work groups. You could volunteer to be part of these work groups. They just had their first meetings, and I haven't had a report on those, heard a report on those yet. But the plan does have to be completed by August of 2024. And there is additional competitive funding available for any of the things that they suggest. So I come to what each of us can and really must do. It's important to educate yourself and keep educating yourself. I encourage you to make a personal lifestyle change and then another, to make plans to electrify your home and your car, to tell your elected officials that action on climate change is important to you, your elected officials on every level, and that you vote. Talk about climate change with your friends and family often, and lead from shared values. Almost all of us want clean air and clean water and beautiful natural places to go to. We need to emphasize solutions are available. And you don't need to be alone. You can join your efforts with others. So I certainly invite you to be part of CCL, but there are a host of other groups in the city that are working on this issue. Many churches have groups. The Audubon Society, Sierra Club, Nebraska Conservation Voters, Interfaith Power and Light. There are all sorts of places where you could join and help out. But the change needs to be systemic. And so I am shamelessly borrowing this Venn diagram from a TED Talk by Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson. She encourages each of us to draw our own Venn diagram and ask ourselves, what are you good at? What skills do you have? What networks do you belong to? What resources do you have? What action needs doing? And there's just many, many possibilities there. And maybe what's even most important, what brings you joy and satisfaction and delight? And where those things cross is your climate action. Dr. Johnson is currently my most favorite climate scientist and communicator. She is a marine biologist and a woman of color. She has two main points in any of her talks. First, that we have to do a much better job of imagining the possibilities of the world we can fashion while we're combating the climate crisis. We don't talk often enough about the positive changes that are open to us. For example, by decreasing the burning of fossil fuels, air pollution goes down and we can save many lives almost immediately. Her second point is that we need many more people involved. She likes the word leaderful. And she points out that people of color are more concerned about the effects of climate change than the general public, but often have less energy to lend to the cause because of racism. I'm watching eagerly for her book, What If We Get This Right? Visions of Climate Futures. It has been delayed a couple of times, but right now it's due to come out in July. And I want to leave you with a quote from another book I recommend, The Future We Choose. Christiana Figueres was the brain behind, and brawn behind the Paris Climate Accords. And she writes, we can together reimagine our place in the world. As human beings, we all have the outrageous fortune to be here on this planet at this moment of profound consequence. When the eyes of our children and their children look straight into ours and they ask us, what did you do? Our answer cannot just be, we did everything we could. It has to be more than that. There's really only one answer. We did everything that was necessary. Thank you, and I want to invite you to CCL chapter meeting. They're every second Saturday at 11 a.m. at Aldersgate United Methodist Church, and everyone is welcome. And I have my email there also. So, thank you.
Becky, that's inspirational, and especially the piece at the end, you've shared with us a lot of information and resources. Thank you very much. I want to encourage everyone who is on our program today, if you're thinking about a question or something you'd like to ask of Becky in particular, please enter it now in the chat. And while you're thinking about that, I just want to share a couple things with you. You know, Becky did mention that one of the primary tenets of the Citizens Climate Lobby is democracy. And that's how we feel about things here with League of Women Voters. At the top of the chat, for those of you who've peeked, I have placed a link to the League's website. I want to make sure that you know that the work that we do advances things in our corner of the world, and we need your support in the form of a donation to help make democracy work. We're actively delivering key solutions, strengthening our democracy locally. We thank those of you who are members. Your membership, by the way, does not cover what's needed really to advance the work we do in the community. So we ask you to visit the homepage just by clicking on that link and find the donate button this afternoon and share a gift amount that's right for you. I've got a few questions that have come in. Let's get to some of those. At the very outset, there was a question that was answered, but I'd like to hear from you, Becky. The question is, what does it mean that climate change is a threat multiplier?
It means that for many of the conflicts that are happening around the world, climate change takes a part of that and makes things, the resolution more difficult. So it multiplies the threats that are involved with a lot of the situations around the world.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I didn't even think about, the Defense Department is really strong on climate change action and going away from fossil fuels. So they use a lot of solar panels in their, solar installations in their fields, because it's really dangerous to be driving around with fossil fuels. So I never thought about that.
Yeah, excellent point. Here's a comment, and perhaps you have a thought to share as a follow-up to it. An interesting thing about the Environmental Forum for City Council and mayoral candidates was to note which candidates did not attend. Most did, but not all. Do you care to comment, Becky?
I think it was telling who did not, and I'm not sure I should. One thing I did not mention is that we're one of the organizations that distribute Vote with Climate in Mind signs. You might have seen those around town. And I think that's one of the things that we really need to be asking our candidates about how they feel about action on climate change. And I do not want to be partisan here. So that's all I'm going to say.
Very good. Sensible. Does CCL have a position on using environmental funds for Nebraska water projects?
No, we don't.
Okay. You're getting some kudos.
Individually, we have lots of opinions, but no, CCL doesn't have.
Okay. We have people sharing some things. Thanks to you for an awesome and compelling presentation. And of course, there are other links in here for you to take a look at about the Citizens Climate Lobby. You might want to click on those before this presentation ends. So here's a question about this presentation file. Can it be shared with our group? Yes. We record all of these and provide them to our leadership. We're in the process of updating our website so that you can look at our previous Lunch and Learn programs. So yes.
Well,
Thank you,
and
Becky.
if you want, I'm willing to share the slide presentation with anybody who wants it. So I could send it to you, and if anybody, I'm going to be going out of town starting Monday, so I'm not going to be around. I'm going out of the country, but I'm happy to share the slides with you, and those do have links to the various. Not links, but at least the notation of where you can find the information that I introduced to you.
That sounds great. Yes, please, Becky, just as a follow-up, send those to me and I'll make sure that gets distributed because people are after that. One more thing I want to mention, I encourage people to continue putting questions up in the chat if you have them today. Just something that's happening recently with our local league. We're part of a coalition of source of income protections in housing. So the league is in collaboration with 14 other organizations and individuals who have signed a petition that'll be presented to the Lincoln City Council on December 18th. This will be preceded by a rally and press conference outside the City County building at 5 p.m. at 555 South 10th Street. If you'd like to support this effort, your presence at the rally would be welcome. or contact your city council representative. Again, that is part of the Coalition for Source of Income Protections in Housing. So thanks for that. I like to keep those who jump onto this program informed of some of the work that League is doing. Here's a question for you, Becky. Does CCL take a position on new and safer nuclear power to provide base electric generation?
We say that the market will determine what renewable energy sources are the ones that we should pursue. So we're open to nuclear if that is economically feasible. And we think the market's going to sort that out for us. I mean, I think maybe all of us know that solar and wind, the price for solar and wind has declined dramatically. And battery storage is also becoming cheaper and better. So, you know, but whatever the market says, we just need to move away from fossil fuels. That's all.
Yeah, that's a big takeaway for me today. So I'm not going to type this question in the chat, but this is my question for you, Becky. Referring back to the Venn diagram that you shared with us, given the work that you're doing and have done so faithfully and well for the last 10 years, what brings you joy about the work that you've been doing and the progress that you've seen?
I think it's the friendships that I've made. It's pretty hard to be positive, to tell you the truth. And, you know, we're edging. I just read something yesterday that 4 out of the 5 colonies of emperor penguins in Antarctica were lost this year because the ice that they had nested on melted too early. I mean, how can you be joyful about that? I just can't be. But, you know, as I mentioned, Dr. Johnson says she can't be hopeful, but she wants to think about the possibilities that are available to us, and they are many. And so if we just each lend our hand to this, we can make a difference. And that conviction, I guess, at least keeps me with it. But it's the friendships that keep me there, because it's sometimes pretty hard to stay hopeful.
And I appreciate that honest answer. There's joy to be found in different corners, even when you're doing hard things.
And what's the choice? I mean, the choice is not to give up, right? I mean, that just
right.
does not, it's not a possibility.
Right. Here we have someone who is suggesting that our local league promote participation in those groups that you listed. We will share the slide deck to those who are interested, likely to the group who's joined us today, and it'll appear on our website as well.
I can also start a list of the local organizations. So, you know, because I didn't have a slide with that. I maybe should have, but I can send you a list of the ones that come to mind. So.
Yes, Becky, that would be welcome. Again, we are looking for a few more questions before we close our program today. And as you're thinking of a thought or two or a question that you might ask of Becky, I'd like to announce that our January Lunch and Learn program is set. The focus is regenerative agriculture. So this will feature David Meyer and Tom Hogemeyer, Nebraska Soil Health Coalition board members. Regenerative agriculture is a way of farming with nature that increases soil and environmental health. So a really good follow-on to what we're talking about today. And we'll hope that all of you joining us today will consider each first Thursday at noon for these informative programs. I do not see any additional questions coming in, but I do believe there'll be some follow-up in terms of actions and interest from those who've joined us today. Becky, are there any ending words you'd like to share with us? Again, I feel like this has been most inspirational, and I can feel your verve from where you sit and how you present.
I guess the only other thing I didn't point out is that COP28 is taking place, and you could probably should follow that. That's the UN climate meetings. Good and bad, as always, but at least it's a forum for all nations to get together. And there has been an agreement on a loss and damage fund for the Global South. They've been demanding that for a long time. The money doesn't add up, but at least there's been an agreement that such a fund is necessary. So there's some progress on that front.
COP28, COP?
COP 28. Yeah.
Okay. I'm making a note. Well, this has been good information shared by a dedicated public servant, if you will. Becky, thank you so much. I'm going to wish everyone a good day and trust that you'll join us next January. Thanks to all, and we are adjourned.